Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I will be a living sanctuary to you.
My name is Marcy Taylor, and I lead a research group at a small biotech startup company where we are looking for small molecules to prevent diseases of protein misfolding. Our lead project is in Alzheimer's disease. Proteins, they make up all living things on Earth, so we kind of need them. So a protein is unique in the way that it's the amino acid sequence that it has. So depending on the amino acid sequence that it has, so the letters that it's made up of, it will form itself into different shapes. To make things more unique, then there are things called modifications that can happen. So in certain environments, an enzyme might put on a little decoration that'll change the protein a little bit and allow it to adopt a new role or do things a little bit differently. And this happens real time in response to what's happening in the environment. And additionally, you might have that initial sequence and think it might not fold quite right. So you can have helper proteins to help guide it to the right shape. These are called chaperones that will allow the protein to achieve its final destination. That in general, taking a step back in the big picture, I just find it so complex and so fascinating that you can have all of this diversity and everything just comes together to work the right way, and there are all of these mechanisms that life has to get to what it needs to grow. It just seems so awe-inspiring, and so for me, that's where the divine is in my work, is just the appreciation for the complexity and the mind-blowingness of biology. For me, that it's complementary. It's not one excludes the other. They work together for me. That feeling of awe emerges really upon reflection. I mean, I think most people on your day-to-day, you're not really thinking about big pictures or the awe. It's once you stop and really be in the moment, or when you stop and reflect, that's when that awe happens. From time to time, if I'm speaking with someone, another researcher, or I'm at a conference, you'll find a good speaker who is able to instill that awe in you. But sometimes it's, in the quiet coffee time conversations with your colleagues, or even just reading a paper. So it's hard to say, when it might happen, but it happens all the time, I think, if you're listening for it. Most of the time, we're just kind of on our autopilot. But yeah, every once in a while, I'll be reading a paper, and it might not have anything to do with my direct line of investigation, what I was looking for, but I'll notice something and be like, oh wow, that's really neat how that works together. And whether it's for some people, it'd be coincidence, or evolutionarily pressures, or what have you, but it just seems so miraculous to me. So my relationship with God, while going through these discoveries and these moments of awe, hasn't really seemed very transactional or two-way. It's more of being a reverence to try and bring a cure to a disease that afflicts millions and millions of people, and not just the patients, but their families as well. I mean, it's a real problem on a global scale, and narrowed down on a family scale as well. Everybody everybody's affected by this at one point or another. So I think that, yeah, what I'm doing, I think God would be pretty happy with. One of the things that I've spoken to colleagues about a lot over this past year is that COVID's really shown us why Alzheimer's isn't funded. It's a disease of the elderly. And one of the things COVID showed us is that society doesn't really care about the care of our elders. The long-term care fiasco just boggles the mind, but people didn't care. They still don't care. They're waiting to just sweep it under the rug. And Alzheimer's is a disease of old people. Cancer, you can show pediatric cancer patients. So you've got these kids and you'll open up your wallets and do anything to save a kid. There's less interest, I think, in these diseases of the aging. But I think that's starting to change, and with the long-term care facilities as well. I'm hoping that that's going to change. There has been increased funding over the past 5 to 10 years, and there's been quite a lot of progress. So for 100 years, there's been one major theory as to what causes Alzheimer's disease. So you've heard of these plaques on your brain. This is how Alzheimer's is defined. It's diagnosed upon autopsy with the presence of these plaques, which are a certain protein that builds up in the brain. And so a lot of work has gone into this, and that's what those clinical trials have been targeting, is this protein. But in the past 10 years, there's been a lot of work on other contributing factors into the disease. You've got a disease that's decades in the making. It's probably not one cause. It's probably not going to be one cure. So the impact of my work on a spiritual front, I think, comes down to the caring for others, doing unto others, helping others, giving them comfort in their times of need, and that ministry to fellow humanity is where I see my spirituality intersecting with the goal of my profession. I see everything that we're doing day to day, like these mundane tasks that we do every day, are all leading up or will culminate in being able to change lives across the world, our neighbors' lives, our families, our loved ones, our strangers, people from countries far away whom we will never ever meet. Every week, one of the leaders in the lab, he's a clinical neurologist, and he always starts every meeting with patient stories. So anonymized, we don't know enough details to know who he's talking about, but he makes a point of making sure that that's front of mind from everybody, from the person who's making the molecules that we're working with to the people who are making the buffers. That there's a reason we're doing this every day, and there are people out there every day who are desperate for hope, who are desperate for that comfort. And that's where, for me, the intersection between spirituality and my work lies. So the relationship between those moments of awe at creation, at how the world works, how life works, in comparison with the feeling of service to my fellow humankind in trying to help with this devastating disease. I think they're quite complementary, and in taking a step back, then you can see that intersectionality between what we're doing on a very microscopic level, sometimes literally, how that is going to go on and affect people's lives in that more service, caring way. So yeah, the feeling of spirituality and that awe carries through. And that is part of what we do every week when we're thinking about why we're doing this. That awe is there, that what we're doing, these little pieces of the puzzle, can impact so much more. And that's awe-inspiring as well.